to another J Reviews. Today we've got Cybernoid for NES. Now don't get too excited, this game's a little... well, it's kinda... maybe I should just show you. This is Cybernoid, or Cybernoid the Fighting Machine. Before you start the actual game, you have a choice of 3 difficulty levels: easy, hard, and lethal. This is an immediate minor annoyance for me. Whenever I'm playing a game, I like to go for normal, and then work my way to hard if the game has enough replay value, avoiding easy altogether. But here, it skips straight from easy to hard. What the hell? One reason I like NES games so much is that they tend to not have different difficulties at all. Just the challenge that the game is programmed to have, with sometimes an option of a harder difficulty after beating it, like Kickmaster for instance. Maybe this is just me, but I don't like it. Guess I'll go with easy to start off with. So, notice anything yet? Yeah, it's hard to miss the loud droning of your spaceship taking place of what should be music. Even the laser sound effects sound pretty bad for NES standards. But audio is just one aspect of a game. What's really important is the gameplay itself. But you'll find out pretty quickly that the controls are probably even worse than the in-game sound effects. You hold up and you go up. You let go and your spaceship lazily floats back down to the bottom of the screen. Not that bad in theory, but just wait until you meet your first enemies. So at the second screen, you're greeted with this school of jellyfish things that make it nearly impossible to pass without dying at least a couple of times. Maybe if you could shoot down it would help? Or if there was just more of a pattern? I mean, you can wait until an opening clears, but an enemy can easily appear below you by random chance before you make it to the next screen. On top of that, it's not like you could speed up when you're dropping. You have to let gravity slowly pull you down and hope to God an enemy doesn't spawn below you in the process. It's not impossibly hard or anything, just a bit annoying that there isn't much consistency or use of skill. Oh, and I know I already talked about the lack of audio quality, but check this out. When you die, your spaceship makes the most pathetic exploding noise I've ever heard. I mean, listen to that. It's ridiculous. Imagine hearing that in any other game when something explodes. Well, that was fun. Okay, now back to the... wait a second. What the hell? Am I hearing music now all of a sudden? But how? Did it just take a while to start up? Hang on. Okay, luckily I actually have the instruction book to this game, so maybe we can find out what's going on. Cybernoid, turn power controls. Here we go. Okay, so according to the booklet, Cybernoid has 2 exciting sound effect modes. To switch between them, you pause and you press the A button. The first mode is for basic music and sound effects. Guess that's what we're on right now since we're hearing music. And the other is super sound effects. No music, just crisp explosions, futuristic laser sounds, and more. Super sound effects. Super sound effects. Crisp explosions. Futuristic laser sounds. Is this some kind of joke? Well, okay, screw super sound effect mode. I'd rather have music. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so from what I can tell, the goal of this game is to go from screen to screen, avoiding or destroying any enemies in your path. Survive long enough to make it to your landing pad, and you're off to the next area. In between, you'll encounter a range of enemies and obstacles, but you'll also find power-ups to help you along your journey. To be honest, this actually sounds pretty interesting in concept. Going from room to room, facing new, more dangerous trials at each turn, avoiding enemies, just trying to make it to the end. But here you're forced to do it in a clunky spaceship and you see the same enemies over and over again. I don't think the game developers made what they set out to create. But let's go a little bit more into detail about that. Okay, first off, the enemies and obstacles in this game are pretty limited. You've got the jellyfish things from earlier. You've got these green blob things that shoot bubbles and do nothing else. These shooter things that are easily avoided. Missile launchers that are motion sensitive. Death elevator things that kill you if you touch them. And finally, bubble machines. They also make bubbles, but unlike the green blobs, they cannot be destroyed. Now, I'm not just saying that more enemies automatically makes a better game. I'm just saying they should put more thought into what they have. There's a green blob here, there's some death elevators there. Sometimes it doesn't make sense at all. Like right here, you just pass by the enemy and then shoot through the blocks. If they had moved the enemy up higher so you had to hurry through the narrow passageway, then that might have made more sense, instead of just placing the enemy in a seemingly random location. Now I want to move on to what's probably the biggest flaw in this game. But before I do that, I'm going to have to introduce the weapons. First off, we've got the bombs. These are probably the most important weapon in the game, but I'll talk about them later. Genocide missile. Use this and you can destroy all the enemies on the screen. The shield. This makes you invincible for a limited amount of time. Bouncers. They basically bounce all over the place and kill some enemies. And seekers. They're like bombs, but they lock onto your enemy. Okay, now about those bombs. This is the most important weapon in the game. Why? Because they're necessary for progressing. Whether it's blowing up some enemies or clearing a path, these things are mandatory to getting through some of these areas. Unfortunately, they're also plagued by two fatal flaws. First off, the hit detection. It's terrible. Sometimes it'll destroy the target, sometimes it won't. I guess it might depend on where you hit the enemy, but it all seems pretty random to me. I mean, look, direct hits and nothing, and then over here it goes straight over the thing and it destroys it. Okay, you ready for the coup de grace? Well, you start off with 20 bombs at the beginning of the game, and that's it. You have to ration them to make sure you can make it through the game. Like here, for instance. To my knowledge, bombs are the only thing that can get rid of these blocks. But guess what? If you run out, then you're screwed. Your bombs are only replenished when you die. Even when you make it to the next level, you keep the amount you had before. Okay, look, I played through the entire first level without dying once, picked up all the power-ups, and they still didn't replenish my bombs at the end. You have to die to progress, it's the only way. Now usually this is about where I'd end my review, but I got curious about this game and I wondered how it was received when it first came out. To my surprise, the game seemed to have universal praise from different magazines and websites, and overall it was a critical success. This made no sense to me. Then I found out that originally Cybernoid was a Commodore 64 game. Huh. So that's why the music and audio sound so primitive. It was probably a straight port. I wonder what the Commodore version sounds like. You know what, I'm done.